Evan worked on the outer level of Orion Station, a place so busy that no one noticed a single human anymore. Humans were everywhere in the galaxy, but nowhere important. They fixed machines, cleaned halls, and followed orders. Evan had learned long ago to keep his head down and his mouth shut. Most aliens did not even look at him. Some did, but only to laugh. To them, humans were weak, slow, and boring. Evan pretended not to care, but inside he felt small. That was when he noticed the tiny alien. It stood near a stack of supply crates, no taller than Evan's knee. Its skin was pale blue, smooth like glass. Its eyes were too big for its small face. It made no sound. It just watched. Evan shifted his weight. The tiny alien shifted too. Evan raised his hand to wipe sweat from his forehead. The tiny alien raised its small hand the same way. Evan frowned. The alien frowned. At first, Evan thought it was a joke. Maybe the alien child was teasing him. Evan turned back to his work and grabbed a tool. The alien grabbed a small piece of metal from the floor, holding it the same way Evan held his tool. That made Evan pause. He took one step to the left. The alien stepped left. He turned around fast. The alien turned just as fast. Evan's heart beat quicker. He waved once. The alien waved once. He nodded his head. The alien nodded too. It was copying him. Not slowly. Not badly. Perfectly. Other aliens walked past and laughed. One tall creature pointed and made a clicking sound that meant humor in its language. Broken mimic, another. Alien said, "Copying a human, useless." Evan felt his face grow hot. He wanted to walk away, but something stopped him. The tiny alien's eyes stayed locked on his. They were empty, but focused. Hungry in a strange way. Evan sat down on a crate. The tiny alien sat too. Evan crossed his arms. The tiny alien crossed its thin arms. This was no game. Evan stood up quickly and walked down the hall. The tiny alien followed, copying his speed, his posture, even the way he avoided others. When Evan slowed, it slowed. When he stopped, it stopped. People began to stare. "What is that thing doing?" An alien technician asked. "No idea," another replied. "But it's learning. Learning." That word made Evan uneasy. He turned suddenly and spoke. "Why are you copying me?" The alien opened its mouth. No sound came out. But its lips moved the same way Evan's had moved. A low hum filled the station. Lights flickered. Then a sharp alarm screamed through the halls. Emergency. Power failure. Aliens panicked at once. Some shouted. Some ran. Others froze in place, unsure what to do without orders. Evan felt fear rise in his chest, but he forced himself to breathe. He had survived worse back on Earth. He looked at the nearest control panel and focused. The tiny alien watched him. Evan took a deep breath. The tiny alien took a deep breath. Evan moved to the panel and began working step by step, slow and steady. The tiny alien stood beside him, copying every movement, every pause, every calm choice. Around them, chaos grew louder. But the tiny alien did not panic. It copied Evan's calm. And in that moment, Evan realized something that made his blood run cold. This alien was not just copying his body. It was copying how he survived. The alarm did not stop. Red lights flashed across the walls of Orion Station. The air felt heavy, full of fear and noise. Aliens ran in all directions, shouting in languages Evan did not understand. Some slammed their hands on control panels. Others froze, unsure what to do. Evan stayed where he was. He had learned long ago that panic only made things worse. Back on Earth, during blackouts and storms, he had learned to slow his breathing and think clearly. He did the same now beside him. The tiny alien stood still. It did not scream. It did not run. It did not cry. It watched Evan. Evan opened the emergency access panel and began checking the system one step at a time. Power lines were unstable. One wrong move could shut down life support in this section. His hands moved with care. The tiny alien moved its hands, the same way. An alien supervisor rushed past and stopped when it noticed them. "Human, move away," it barked. "This is not your task." Evan did not answer. He was focused. The supervisor turned to shout at someone else. At that moment, a console sparked and went dark. The supervisor screamed in anger and fear. Evan stayed calm. The tiny alien stayed calm. Minutes passed. The noise around them grew worse. Smoke filled the hall. The station shook slightly, as if something deep inside it was breaking. Evan finally sealed the panel. Power returned to part of the corridor. Lights flickered back on. A few aliens stopped running and stared. "How did you do that?" one asked. Evan wiped sweat from his face. "I just followed the steps," the alien frowned. Humans were not known for technical skill in the higher systems. Yet the panel was stable. No one noticed the tiny alien had been watching every move. Moments later, another section failed. This time, Evan was farther away. He turned toward the sound of cracking metal. The tiny alien did not wait. It ran to the broken panel. Evan's eyes widened. The alien stood on a crate to reach the controls. Its small fingers moved fast, copying the same steps Evan had used before. Not guessing. Not testing. Remembering. The panel stabilized. The alarm softened. A deep silence followed. Alien stared. In shock, a few stepped back as if afraid of the small creature. "That is not possible," a scientist whispered. It only saw the process once. The tiny alien turned its head slowly, just like Evan did when checking his work. It tilted its head, copying his habit of listening to the machine. Evan walked toward it. "You did good," he said quietly. The alien looked at him. For the first time, something changed in its eyes. There was focus, but also something else. Understanding. Security drones floated down the hall. Orders were shouted. The tiny alien was surrounded. "Isolate the mimic," a command voice echoed. "It is adapting too fast." Evan stepped forward. Without thinking, "It saved this section," he said. "Just like I did." No one listened. The tiny alien was lifted gently but firmly by a beam of light. It did not resist. It looked at Evan. Evan clenched his fists. He felt anger rise, sharp and strong. Humans were always ignored, always pushed aside. Even now, when proof stood in front of them, the tiny alien copied his clenched fists. The alien copied his anger. A scientist nearby froze. "It's not just copying actions," she said softly. "It's copying emotional response." That single sentence changed everything. Because emotions were not supposed to transfer that way. The galaxy believed humans were simple, emotional, and flawed. But now those same traits were shaping something new, something dangerous. As the tiny alien was taken away, Evan realized the truth. He had not just fixed a machine. He had started a chain reaction the galaxy could not stop. The room where they took. The tiny alien was white, silent, and cold. Thick glass walls surrounded it. Lights floated in the air, watching every movement. Scientists stood behind the glass, speaking in low voices. To them, the tiny alien was no longer a child. It was a question, and questions made the galaxy nervous. Evan stood outside the room, hands behind his back. He was not supposed to be there. Humans were not part of high-level research, but no one had pushed him away yet. Inside the room, the tiny alien stood still. It watched Evan through the glass. When Evan shifted his weight, the alien shifted. Too, when Evan relaxed his shoulders, the alien did the same. The copying had not stopped. If anything, it had become smoother, more natural. A scientist tapped on her screen. Its neural activity is rising again, she said. Not in spikes, in patterns, another scientist frowned. Patterns like what? Like decision-making. That made the room quiet. They gave the tiny alien a simple test. A glowing shape appeared in the air. Most species would wait for instructions. The tiny alien looked at Evan. Evan tilted his head, thinking. The tiny alien tilted its head. Evan took one step forward, slow and careful. The tiny alien stepped forward too. It reached out and touched the shape. The shape changed color. The test was complete. The scientist stared. It's not waiting for commands, one said. It's acting. A security officer crossed his arms. That is not allowed. Another test followed. 2 paths appeared on the floor, one safe, one dangerous. Most aliens avoided risk at all costs. Evan watched quietly. The tiny alien looked at the paths, then it looked at Evan again. Evan remembered times on Earth when there was no safe choice, only the least bad one. He stepped toward the risky path, slow and ready. The tiny alien followed him. Alarms rang. The dangerous path deactivated just in time. The test ended. That was a gamble, a scientist whispered. Evan spoke without thinking. Humans do that. Sometimes it's the only way forward. The words hung in the air. The alien leaders watching from above were not pleased. This experiment has gone too far, one said. The mimic is learning human behavior. Human behavior is unstable. As if to prove the point, shouting echoed in the station. 2 alien workers were arguing. One shoved the other aside. Evan felt a familiar anger twist in his chest. He had seen this before. Strong pushing weak, power without care. The tiny alien's body tensed. It copied Evan's anger. Before anyone could stop it, the tiny alien stepped between the 2 larger aliens. It raised its small arms, just like Evan once had during a fight back home. It did not attack. It blocked. The larger alien stumbled back in surprise. Silence fell across the hall. That was protection, a scientist said slowly. It chose to defend. Security rushed in. Weapons activated, glowing but not firing. The tiny alien did not move. It stood firm, small, and unafraid. Evan stepped forward. His voice was calm but strong. It's doing what humans do, he said, protecting someone weaker. A leader slammed a hand on the table. That is exactly the problem. They feared what they were seeing. The tiny alien was no longer a mirror. It was becoming a bridge between thought and action, between logic and feeling. And bridges could not be controlled. Orders came fast. The tiny alien was to be moved again, farther away, deeper into secure space. As guards surrounded it, the tiny alien turned one last time toward Evan. It copied his posture. It copied his. Calm, but in its eyes there was now something new. Choice. Evan understood then. The galaxy had just witnessed the first alien who did not just copy humanity. It had chosen it. The transport bay was dark and shaking. Heavy doors sealed shut with loud metal sounds. The tiny alien stood inside a clear containment field, silent and still. Guards surrounded it, their weapons glowing with soft warning light. Above them, red signals blinked again. Another alarm. This one was deeper, slower, more dangerous. A voice echoed through Orion Station. Warning, unknown vessels detected. Multiple signals, non-friendly. The room froze. Everyone knew what that meant. A hostile fleet was approaching. The alien leaders shouted orders. Defense systems came online, then failed one by one. The station had not fully recovered from the power damage earlier. Shields flickered like weak lights in the dark. Evan was pushed back as officers rushed past him. Humans were ordered to evacuation zones. He was told to leave. He did not move. Through the containment field, the tiny alien watched him. It saw Evan's jaw tighten. It saw his eyes narrow in focus. It copied that look. The first impact hit the station. The floor trembled. A shockwave knocked several guards off their feet. The containment field flickered. The tiny alien swayed, but stayed standing. Stabilize that field. Someone shouted. Another impact hit. This one was closer. A section of the wall cracked. Smoke poured in. Evan grabbed a rail to stay upright. His heart raced, but his mind stayed sharp. He scanned the bay, already planning where to move if the field failed. The tiny alien followed his gaze. Outside, explosions lit the dark of space. The hostile fleet had begun firing. Orion Station's defenses were too slow. Too careful, too afraid. A senior alien commander shouted, "Hold position! Await full council approval." Evan muttered under his breath, "They'll be dead by then." The tiny alien heard the tone, even if it did not understand the words. Suddenly, the containment field collapsed. The tiny alien dropped to the floor. Weapons locked onto it at once. "Do not fire!" Evan shouted without thinking. The alien guards hesitated for half a second. That was enough. The tiny alien ran, not away, toward the control platform. It moved exactly like Evan would, low, fast, using cover. A blast shook the floor, but it adjusted, just like Evan had done during old drills back on Earth. Scientists shouted in panic, "It's loose!" Evan ran after it. The tiny alien reached a damaged defense console. The screen was cracked. Sparks flew. No alien dared touch it. One wrong input could overload the system. The tiny alien climbed up, hands shaking for just a moment. Then it stopped. It looked back at Evan, nodded once. The tiny alien copied his nod. It began working. Its hands moved fast, copying Evan's earlier repair steps but adapting them. It rerouted power. It ignored safety limits. It pushed systems past normal rules, human rules. Beam of energy fired from the station. One enemy ship exploded. The bay went silent. Then another shot. Another ship fell. The hostile fleet hesitated. They had not expected resistance. Not from a damaged station. Not from a tiny alien. The defense systems burned hot. Warning screamed. The tiny alien kept working, copying Evan's stubborn focus. Finally, the enemy ships pulled back. The attack stopped. Smoke filled the bay. People stood frozen, staring at the small figure on the console. The tiny alien turned slowly. It was breathing hard. Evan walked up to it. He placed a hand on the console, steadying himself. The tiny alien copied the gesture. A scientist whispered, "It saved us." A commander whispered back, using human tactics. Evan looked around at the silent room. Fear, respect, and confusion mixed in alien eyes. The galaxy had just survived because of a human way of thinking, carried out by a tiny alien who refused to freeze when fear arrived. The station did not celebrate. There was no cheering, no victory lights, no proud speeches. Orion Station stayed quiet, like a creature holding its breath. Smoke drifted through the halls. Broken lights flickered. Outside the wide windows, the enemy ships were gone, but fear remained. The tiny alien sat on the floor near the defense console. Its small chest moved up and down as it breathed. Burn marks covered the panel. The system was alive, but barely. Evan stood beside it. For the first time, no one told him to move away. Scientists gathered, speaking fast and nervous. Leaders arrived from secure chambers. Guards stood ready, but unsure. No one knew what to do next. The tiny alien looked at Evan, not to copy him. Not this time. It was waiting. A tall alien leader stepped forward. Its voice was sharp. "Explain this," it demanded. "This creature is not trained. It should not be capable of such decisions." A scientist answered slowly. "It did not follow our logic. It followed human logic. That word spread through the room. Human. The leader turned toward Evan. You, what did you teach it? Evan swallowed. Every eye was on him now. Humans were never at the center of galactic rooms. I didn't teach it, Evan said. Lie. Just survived, like I always do. Some aliens clicked in confusion. Survived how? Evan looked at the damaged station. By adapting. By acting when there is no perfect choice. A scientist pulled up data screens. Brain patterns glowed in the air. The mimic species learns by reflection, she said. But this one went further. It copied emotional control, risk judgment, and moral choice. The leader frowned. Moral choice? Yes, the scientist replied. It chose to protect the station instead of itself. That caused a stir. Aliens were taught to protect systems, not individuals. To wait for orders. To follow protocol. The tiny alien had broken. All of that. It stood up slowly. Everyone tensed. Weapons did not rise, but hands moved closer to them. The tiny alien looked around the room. Its eyes stopped on injured workers being helped by medics. Then on Evan, then back to the leaders. It spoke. The words were broken. Simple. Copied from Evan's language files. Fix. First. Fear. Later. The room went silent. No translator. Needed. Evan felt something tighten in his chest. He remembered saying those same words during a storm on Earth years ago. He had not even known the alien heard them. A commander shook his head slowly. It speaks human now. No, the scientist corrected. It thinks human. That was worse. Debate exploded. Some leaders demanded the tiny alien be destroyed. Others wanted to study it. A few, very few, suggested learning from it. Evan listened in silence. He had heard this kind of talk before. Humans had been judged the same way for centuries. The tiny alien copied Evan's stillness. Then it did something new. It stepped forward alone. It faced the leaders without fear. I choose, it said. The words were slow, but clear. The room froze. Choose what? A leader asked. The tiny alien looked at Evan once, then back at the room. Help, learn, protect, a scientist whispered. It's forming values. Values, that word changed everything. Values were not programmed, they were lived. The leader's voice was low. If others like it copy humans, the galaxy will change. Evan spoke softly, but everyone heard him. It already has. Silence followed. The tiny alien walked back to Evan's side. It stood close, copying his posture, but this time with purpose. Not imitation, alignment. The leaders realized the truth too late. Humanity was not strong because of weapons or numbers. It was strong because its way of thinking could spread. And now the galaxy could never unlearn it. The council chamber was larger than any hall Evan had ever seen. Curved walls of dark crystal rose high above. Floating lights moved slowly, like thinking stars. Leaders from many species filled the room. Watching from raised platforms, at the center stood Evan. Beside him stood the tiny alien. The tiny alien was no longer shaking. It stood straight, copying Evan's calm stance. But something was different. Now it was not waiting to react. It was ready to act. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. This council must decide, a leader said. The mimic cannot remain free. Another leader answered. It saved an entire station. Without it, thousands would be dead. That is the danger, a third voice said. It acted without permission. Evan listened. Humans were used to this kind of talk, risk versus control. Freedom versus fear. The tiny alien looked up at him. Evan did not speak yet. He remembered all the times humans had been judged before being understood. He would not beg. He would tell the truth. A leader turned toward him. Human, you are the source of this change. Speak, Evan stepped forward. His voice was steady. Simple. I didn't train it to fight. I didn't teach it to break rules. I taught it how to face fear and move anyway. A low murmur filled the chamber. That thinking is flawed, a leader replied. Fear exists to stop mistakes. Evan shook his head slowly. Fear exists, but freezing kills, waiting kills. Humans learned that the hard way. The tiny alien copied his slow head shake. A scientist activated a projection. Images appeared past crises across the galaxy. Aliens waiting for orders. Systems failing, lives lost. Then new images appeared. The tiny alien acting, choosing, adapting. The mimic species copies. Surface behavior, the scientist said. This one copied depth. It copied resilience. Resilience spreads, a leader warned. That cannot be controlled. Evan answered quietly, neither can survival. The council fell silent. Then. The tiny alien stepped forward alone. Guards tensed. Energy weapons hummed softly. The tiny alien raised its small hands, copying the human sign of peace. No fight, it said. I choose. The leaders stared. Choose what? One demanded. The tiny alien's voice was simple, but clear. I stay with humans. The chamber erupted. Voices clashed. Orders overlapped. Evan's breath caught. He had hoped. But he had not expected this. A leader slammed a staff against the floor. Impossible. You are not human. The tiny alien looked up. I learn from human. I become me. The words were not perfect, but the meaning was. A scientist whispered. It understands identity. That frightened them more than weapons ever could. One leader spoke coldly. If we allow this, others may follow. Whole species could change. Evan stepped beside the tiny alien. That's how the galaxy has always changed, he said, by learning from each other. The tiny alien copied his stance again. Shoulder to shoulder. Not smaller, not weaker. Equal. A long silence followed. Finally, the oldest leader spoke. Its voice was slow and tired. If we destroy what we do not understand, we learn nothing. The chamber stilled. We will not destroy the mimic. The leader continued. But it will not be owned. It will choose its path. The tiny alien looked at Evan. Together? It asked. Evan smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. Together. Some leaders looked away. Others watched with fear. A few watched with curiosity. The decision was made. The tiny alien walked out of the chamber. Beside a human. And across the galaxy, something shifted. For the first time, humanity was not being watched as labor. It was being watched as an example. And the galaxy began to wonder what else humans had been teaching. Without ever meaning to, years passed, but the story of the tiny alien never faded. Across the galaxy, Orion Station became more than a place of trade. It became a symbol. People whispered about the day a small mimic chose to think like a human and save thousands of lives. Some called it an accident. Others called it a warning. Evan still worked there. He was no longer ignored. Aliens greeted him now. Some with respect, some with caution, a few with quiet curiosity. Humans were no longer seen only as workers. They were watched, studied, imitated. The tiny alien had grown, not much in size but in presence. It walked with confidence. It spoke clearly now, still using simple words, still direct. It no longer copied every move Evan made. It chose when to copy, when to differ. That was the biggest change. The mimic species sent others to observe. They watched how humans failed, stood back up, and tried again. They learned that mistakes were not weakness. They were steps. Soon, small changes appeared across the galaxy. Alien crews began allowing lower ranks to speak during crises. Stations stopped waiting for perfect orders. Commanders learned to trust. Quick judgment. Risk became a tool, not a fear. And every change led back to one idea: human thinking. A distant conflict tested this new way. A trade colony was trapped between collapsing stars. Old rules said retreat and wait. Humans did not wait. Evan was there as an advisor. The tiny alien stood beside him. They made a plan that was not perfect. It was fast. It was bold. It worked. The colony survived. News spread faster than light. Humans were no longer ranked low. They were called something new: survivors, not because they were strongest, but because they refused to freeze. One night, Evan stood at a wide window, watching ships leave the station. The tiny alien stood beside him, hands behind its back, copying Evan's old habit. "You changed galaxy," it said. Evan shook his head gently. "No, I just showed you how humans deal with fear." The tiny alien thought for a moment. "Fear's still here," it said. Evan nodded. "It always is. Then why humans move?" The alien asked. Evan smiled. "Because someone has to." The tiny alien looked out at the stars. "I move too." Evan felt pride, but also humility. Humanity had never planned to teach the galaxy. It had only tried to survive. But survival, done openly, was contagious. The council later released a statement. It was short, careful, but powerful. Humanity has demonstrated adaptive intelligence and moral resilience. These traits are valuable to galactic stability. For the first time, humans were not listed as minor species. They were listed as partners. The tiny alien visited Earth once. It stood on soil. It felt rain. It watched humans argue, laugh, fail, and help each other anyway. "This place is loud," it said. Evan laughed. "That's humanity." The tiny alien smiled, a human expression it chose on its own. As years went on, more species learned from humans. Not to become human, but to become braver versions of themselves. And in every history record, the same story was told. It began with a tiny alien. It continued with one human who refused to panic. And it ended with a galaxy that finally understood the truth. Humanity was never dangerous because of power. Humanity was dangerous because it taught others how to stand up, even when the universe told them to stay still.